Hello, hello, hello again. Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties, but welcome to the Bold Unstoppable Show. I'm Dr. Rochelle Marie Lawson, and today we're talking about the bias in the exam room. Women, especially women of color, routinely being are reporting that we're being dismissed, misdiagnosed, and we're just talking about this while we're getting things together, or undertreated by healthcare providers. And this episode dives deep into the medical gaslighting that occurs, the racial bias, the dismissal of women's issues, pain, and anything that we women come and present to the medical centers for, invisibility of menopause and chronic conditions. And our panelists are going to share stories and we're going to explore how women can actually advocate for themselves in the systems that was not really built for us. And there's a whole bunch of information behind that. So I want to welcome you. I am Dr. Rochelle Marie Lawson, the Queen of Feeling Fabulous, your host this evening. And we're going to pull the curtain back on the healthcare system because I think it's time for women to understand what's happening in our world today and what's been happening for the last few decades. We're talking about bias in the exam room, and it's probably the stress diagnosis that you hear, or you're exaggerating your pain. Hopefully you never heard a physician say that, or the rushed appointments, the misdiagnosis, the prescriptions that they keep giving you, but not getting to the root cause of why they're diagnosing you and giving you those prescriptions. And for the Black and brown women, especially our women of color, the deadly combination of racism and sexism that shows up in our charts, our births, and our outcomes is real, real, real. So we're not talking about just health issues like fibroids, endometriosis, autoimmune conditions, perimenopause, or menopause. We're not just talking about that. We're talking about the inconveniences that the healthcare system is placing upon us because they have to stop and take time to address our medical needs. So tonight we're not going to be polite. We're going to be on it. We're going to be honest. We're going to be candid, and we're going to shed some light on the things that are happening right underneath our eyes and in our own faces. So tonight I have panelists with me, and I'm going to go ahead and let Cassandra Hill open up and introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cassandra Hill, hailing from Arkansas. I am a master life coach, author, and speaker. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Cassandra. It's a pleasure to have you. We'll go with Miss Marie.
Hi, I'm honored to be here on your podcast, and thank you for all that you are doing to educate women on how they can improve better patient outcomes. My background is in healthcare. I am now a full-time keynote speaker, but I still have businesses and diagnostic devices for healthcare, specifically concussion, traumatic brain injury, balance disorders, and autonomic nervous system disorders.
Well, thank you, Marie, and welcome to the Bold Unstoppable Show. And Coach Cotton.
Good evening, everyone. I am Coach M. Cotton. I'm your certified personal development coach. I concentrate in mindfulness practice. So I specialize in a lot of mental and behavioral health. And thank you so much, Rochelle, for bringing me on this show tonight. I'm excited.
All right, ladies, let's do it. Okay, so my first question for you all is, what has been your most eye-opening experience of feeling dismissed or not believed in the medical system? And who wants to take that question? How about you, Marie?
Sure, thank you. So my experience begins with my mother. I had shared privately and backstage that I was born to a mentally disabled single mom. She was in a car accident that caused permanent brain damage, and then she was assaulted, which resulted in my birth. So the healthcare that she was given was not the best, and I constantly, as I grew up, I was able to assist her and be her advocate. But I also experienced it myself, for example, many times, just not once, even with family members. But for example, last year I had really, really bad abdominal pain. I didn't know what was coming from. And the doctors dismissed me saying it was just fibromyalgia. And that's why I'm really glad, Dr. Rochelle, that you're doing this, because I believe it's very important that we need to be advocates for ourselves. We need to question. Just because there's bias with one person doesn't mean all physicians are biased. But we do have to be prepared, and we have to be advocates for ourselves. And so in order for us not to create additional bias, we need to be prepared with our questions. We need to be able to say, hey, but this is not how I felt before. This is new. And that's what I did. I said, I've never felt this before. This is painful. No, it's fibromyalgia. We did an MRI. We did a CT scan. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay, well, then we ask questions. Okay, you say there's nothing wrong with me. The results are normal, but I know my body and I never felt like this before. So know your body, document, hey, I never experienced this before. All of a sudden on this date, I started experiencing this. And ask, what could it be? What would you do? And ask the doctor. And don't be afraid to ask for a second opinion. And I had to do that. I had to ask for a second, third, fourth. It was the fifth doctor that said, let's do an ultrasound. And that's when they discovered it was a gallbladder issue. But I had been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So that's why it is so important. And thank you, Dr. Rochelle, again, for bringing this up, because I believe it is so important that we advocate for ourselves. And if you feel that you are not confident enough to advocate for yourself, bring a friend, bring someone who can document for you.
I agree. I totally agree, Marie. I think I've seen it, and I'll share some of my experiences being on the clinician side that I've helped my patients, or enlighten my patients about. But it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Cassandra, what about you?
Yeah, for me, it was a period of years. I can recall as an undergraduate student, just experiencing extreme fatigue, just barely being able to stay up and do all the late nights, papers, and all the things. And so go to the doctor, they do the labs, and I am anemic, right? But they don't dig to figure out why I'm anemic, because I'm anemic, but I'm having these other symptoms as well. And so they just dismissed it, like the pain I was feeling, all the other things, as, oh, you're just a college student who's overworked. And unfortunately, it was more than that. After nearly 10 years, I was diagnosed with systemic lupus. But
Wow.
it just was a result of, even after going to several medical providers, my voice wasn't being heard. So I encourage anyone who's listening, no matter how many providers you have to go to, keep going until someone listens to you and actually is willing to do the proper assessments needed to get an accurate diagnosis.
Thank you for sharing. Coach Cotton, do you have anything you want to add?
Absolutely. Similar to Cassandra, I'm sorry. I struggled with chronic anemia as well, due to fibroids. And mine was a little bit, we're going to push it a little bit more racial. I was seeing a provider who was Caucasian female, and of course I'm African American female. So quickly to share with you guys, she just did not take me seriously. And she dismissed it. And I began to do my own research, and I began to ask questions, and I began to push. And I realized as soon as I went in there with my own research and I began to ask those questions, she began to look at me very differently. But then this was something that started to annoy her. So I said, could I be referred to a different hematologist? And she taking her time with my care. Fortunately for me, her physician's assistant was on my side. She was also Caucasian, but I don't know if she had experience with this particular provider before in these cases, but she really advocated for me as I advocated for myself. I was fortunate enough to get transferred to a hematologist of color like me, who heard me day one, and I ended up having the myomectomy surgery in 2023 after 30 years, nearly 30 years of battling irregular menstrual cycles, fibroids, fatigue, all the things that came with chronic anemia from treatments, iron infusions. So I agree with all the panelists. And Dr. Rochelle, thank you for having this conversation. It is so needed. And ask questions, do your own research, fight for yourself, advocate for yourself. It is so important because you never know what your voice can do and how it can support all other women.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. I love this. So I'm going to share my story and then the story from the other side of being a clinician. So I suffered for 17 years with an undiagnosed medical condition. Growing up in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area, I had access to Stanford. I was born at Stanford, and I'll go there. When I went to the doctor, I probably saw 100 different went to 100 different doctor's visits. And this began at the age of 8. So when I was a young little girl, they would just dismiss it, right? At the age of 9, I had my first pelvic exam because they couldn't figure out what was going on and why I kept coming back, why I kept having these excruciating abdominal pains and abdominal discomfort. And I remember, I could see it today on that exam table, and having the physician, a white male physician who was probably ready for retirement because his hair was all white, saying he didn't have equipment small enough to examine me because he needed to do a pelvic exam. After about a few years of going through these, doctor and stuff, I didn't want to go anymore. So that led me on several journeys. One was with holistic medicine, and 2 was to be an advocate. I'm a girl, and I've always spoke up, and my mouth has always gotten me in trouble when I was a little girl. I was always getting popped in the mouth because I was always saying what should be said, but probably not in the right context, right? It's not what I said, it's how I said it. But what led me on this journey, and I was already a nurse, I knew I had became, after probably like in my 20s, I knew what I was suffering from because I had already been a nurse. But I was not going to take the prescriptions. They're quick to give me a prescription, pain medication, this, that, and the other, but they didn't want to take the time to diagnose me. Here's the thing. At the age of 25, I'm working in the ER, and I knew what I had. I had a bleeding ulcer, and I did some holistic things. And 9 months later, I was completely healed without any medications. But I tell you, you have to advocate for yourself. Now, on the flip side, I'm in the emergency department. I'm seeing women of all kind of color. I'm working in an area where it was the #1 murder capital of the nation at the time. So they were rolling in and banging, and it was a trauma center. And these young ladies would come in, and certain physicians would treat the women of color different than the women that were not of color that came in with the same complaints. But yet they were so quick to say, oh, they just want a prescription. They just want some pain medication. And I'm like, no, they're here. They're in pain. They're hurting. And finally, I had to sit down and have a candid heart-to-heart conversation like only Rochelle Marie can with one of the doctors. And I had to educate him, and then he began to see things from a different perspective. But I tell the ladies, and I'll tell you all today watching, don't be satisfied with the one diagnosis that they try to give you and get you out the door. My mom suffered from rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, and she ended up dying in 2024 after suffering for nearly 40 years. But when she first came down with the symptoms in her 30s, they were discounted, except for by her obstetrician physicians. Everyone else was discounted. Oh, it's in your head. You stressed. Your marriage is falling apart. This, that, and the other. But long story short, she was properly diagnosed and was treated to the best of the ability that they could give to her. And so with me being her advocate, they would see me coming in and they'd be like, oh Lord, here comes this woman. But I'm saying this because don't take the first diagnosis. If it doesn't sit right with you, don't take the first diagnosis, and do like Coach Cotton said, come in with your research. If you go in and you get this diagnosis and you're still having the symptoms and stuff, go back. But before you go back, do some research. Back when I was suffering and when Coach Cotton began her suffering, there was no internet. You had to go to the library and pull out books to research. Now we have access where we can get stuff instantaneously. Put your signs and symptoms in, and it'll bring up 17, maybe, a bunch of different diagnoses. But take that information with you when you go to the hospital, and don't take no for an answer that you know is not the correct diagnosis. And I can go on, but I'm just saying this is powerful because I see it. And it's not just with women of color, it's women. There's an assault on our health care rights, ladies. And if we don't stand up now, pretty soon it's going to be back in a time where we're going to have a man escort us to go see our own doctors. Because that's what some of the things, women died for some of the rights we have, and now they're trying to take those rights away. And so it's important that you advocate for yourself. And if you're too scared to advocate for yourself, bring your girlfriend, your mama, your sister, your cousin, your auntie, whoever it is, got that voice, and have them advocate for you, because it's important for you to know what you got going on and to be able to take better care of yourself by finding out how you can do that, whether it's Western medicine or holistically. But there's avenues available for all of us. Okay, ladies, my next question is, what do you think, or why do you think women's pain is so often minimized, and how has that historically affected our healthcare outcomes? And I would like Marie to share just a tiny segment, a little bit snippet of her experience with not just herself, but with her mom.
Okay, so my experience with my mom, it was always, they were always experimenting with my mom and changing the medications. And I noticed that because it affected her so badly. And there was no one to advocate for her. So when I got older and I became a teenager, I naturally began to go with her and question the doctors. Of course, they didn't like that. Then when I got in my 20s and 30s and got into healthcare, I educated myself and started to ask questions and started to get her a little bit more stabilized with her medications. And when they wanted to switch or experiment, there's this new medication, and I would research it. But that's why it is so important to have someone there. For me, my experience, going in at like 1 a.m. because it's excruciating pain and I didn't know what was going on. I have 5 children, so I know what, this is worse than labor pain. Like, something is seriously wrong with me. And it was finally, like I mentioned, the last doctor that was like, it's your gallbladder, we got to remove it, now. It's completely shot. But it is, like I said, like you said, Dr. Rochelle, if you do not have an advocate and you are not advocating for yourself, you will be dismissed. And that can happen to anyone. Actually, it's very sad. It could happen to anyone. So it doesn't even matter if you're a person of color or not. In some instances, if they know you don't have someone there, you're not going to get the best treatment. That's just the way our system is. And Dr. Rochelle, I'm sure it's like, get them in, get them out as fast as you can. That is the reality. That's been my experience in healthcare for the last 25 years, what I've seen. And it makes me very sad. That's why I tell everybody, have an advocate. Don't just, if you have a family member and they're in the hospital, try to be there. I know that I spend the night, and when my grandfather was in the hospital with leukemia, I spent the night at the hospital. I was there because I knew if I'm there, they're going to have to, they can't just mess around. They have to provide better care.
I agree. You definitely should have someone there. Now, if you have sensitive issues, you don't necessarily want that person in the room with you. Maybe you've been sexually assaulted or something like that. During the examination process, if you don't feel comfortable having someone in there where you disclose what happened, your deepest, darkest secret, so to speak, that's fine. But once the exam is taking place, have them get that person in the room with you so that they can be there, because a lot of times they'll say stuff to us and we're so caught up in what's going on with us that we miss things. But having that other person in there, that other set of ears, will pick up stuff that we miss and we'll be able to say, hey, did you hear this? Or what about this? And so it's very important to have someone with you, just because, you know, we get wrapped up in what's going on with us. And sometimes in the moment we forget, or we don't hear what we need to hear to ask more pointed questions. Or why are you prescribing me this pain medication? I didn't, you know, that's not what I want. You know what I mean? It's very, very important. Let me move into our next question now. And I agree, it's not just women of color. It happens to all women. However, the impact, or the data shows that it happens more often to women of color. And so all women need to advocate. We all need to advocate for each other so that we can turn the tables and turn the tide on what's becoming systemically chronic. And I've seen it happen even during COVID with various things of different patients, particularly women, how they would discount the women's symptoms no matter who they were, right? Doctors, I know physicians that have died of COVID because they were women and their symptoms were discounted until it was too late. So my next question is, the data on maternal mortality and health disparities is devastating, particularly in our marginalized communities. How does that land for you personally? And let's go with you. Let's start with you, Coach Cotton.
That's a very good question. So for me, when I think about that, I come from the perspective of that I'm the world's greatest auntie out here. And so I currently don't have any children. I have a couple of fur babies who you can't tell me they're not my babies. So I thank you for this question, but I do realize that because we're strong women as a whole, we can put that on any race. And so we get looked over a lot. Or if we're not getting looked over, then it's you can take it. You're strong. You got it. We don't worry about you. When we're the most women, people who need to be cared for, need to be nurtured, need to be looked after. And so when I think about groups of women who think it's okay that I can be strong all the time, or I can do it all by myself, and I'm Miss Independent. A funny quick story I was sharing with a close friend of mine. I said, as I got older, I used to love Neo's Miss Independent, and I don't like that quite so much. I said, it's a different wisdom that's coming with that, because I realized that, you know, we were never designed to do this all alone. And so when I think about that maternity part and being a matriarch of a family, think about your grandmother and your great grandmothers and your mom, that trickles on down to, you know, I have a great niece that's turning 1 year old on Thursday. I'm like, how do we play a part into that? What can we do to, again, advocate for ourselves and speak up to say that we too need support? We can't do it all. We don't want to do it all. We're tired. So
Right.
just to answer your question,
Right.
when I think about the whole group of women as a whole, and just coming from that maternity line and lineage, we need support too. And it's okay for us to say we need help.
I love it. Thank you. That's a beautiful message. And so I went back to, I don't know if y'all are INDEPEDENT. Do man, do you know what that means? She got her own job. She got her own. That's what happens, you know. We know they know we independent. They know we don't really need them to survive.
Right.
You know, we can have a baby go out and cook the meal and get the meal, you know, kill cows, whatever we need to do. But there are times when our strength circumvents our need for support. And I am totally that gal. I'm totally that gal. I'm one who don't really ask for help, and I'll just roll through it. I'll just thug through it, like they say. But those around me that are close to me recognize those signs, because I get really, really intensely focused and really like, no, leave me alone. And that is the time when I need that support the most. So if you have someone in your life like that just wants to handle her own business and just is like, it's okay. Say, I just want to be with you. You know, I'm gonna let you do what you need to do. I'm gonna let you be where you need to be, but I just want to be here to support you. And I could be quiet if you want me to, but I just want you to know that you don't have to go through this alone. You have a support system, but I'm going to let you do it the way that is best for you. And so I think it's just, like you said, it's very, very important for us to come together as a gender and really support each other with our challenges that we experience in the medical community. Now, have you ever had to over prepare, like with research, bring notes, bring someone with you, just to be taken seriously at your doctor's appointment? Has anybody ever experienced that? Yeah, yeah. Cassandra, let me hear you talk.
Yeah. If it's okay, I'm gonna tie this in with the previous question
Yes,
as
please
well,
do.
because they're kind of correlated for me. We do know there's much research that shows Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in pregnancy. And for me, as I mentioned earlier, um, I am thriving. 10 years in remission from systemic lupus. However, when I was getting pregnant at one point in my life, um, I was having multiple miscarriages. And so going to the doctor, not really them not doing the necessary work. Honestly, I ended up doing the research to get my diagnoses actually, but in regard to being over prepared, I literally had to look and see, okay, what's happening, why I can get pregnant very easily. So I know it's not anything reproductive. So what's causing this? Why is it? Because I never made it past 4 months with any of my pregnancies. And so, in just doing the research, I'm like, okay, why is my body attacking a healthy baby? And so, just doing that research, and it's like, okay, I have an autoimmune something. And once I started doing more research, I'm like, a doctor couldn't figure out that I gotta have some type of lupus, but it literally was me doing the research and over preparing that even led to me getting the proper diagnoses and then getting the necessary treatment from having multiple loss of babies as well.
Let me ask you this, Cassandra. When you figured out that what you were experiencing, signs and symptoms, was in correlation with signs and symptoms for systemic lupus,
Hmm.
did you bring that information to the physician? And if you did, what did they say? How did they react?
Yeah, at that point, when I got the research, at that time I was living in Atlanta, and previously I was living in Texas. And no shade against Texas, it's a good place to live. But with the providers that I had there, I never had a minority um, healthcare
Physician.
professional, whether it was doctor, nurse practitioner. But when I got to the Atlanta area, I had a Black doctor. And so when I brought him the research along with my medical records from Texas, he right away, I was like, I want an ANA test. And for those who might be listening, ANA is a anti-nuclear antibody test. I was like, that at least let me know if that test positive, I know I'm on to something. And so he ordered it immediately.
Yeah. You know, it's
Yes.
interesting when you think about our physicians, African American physicians, Latino physicians, Latinos, Asian, and so on. There's certain diseases and conditions that show up more prevalent in
Mhm.
specific demographics with regards to race, right? And so when you come across a physician that happens to be your same race and you explain things to them, sometimes they're able to understand and they're coming from generational information versus the clinical information that they've learned in school. And so I think sometimes that can be, good, very good. And then sometimes it can also be a little challenging as well. But it never ever hurts to have wherewithal with regards to looking at your signs and symptoms, Googling stuff and coming in. Some physicians might get a little twisted and upset that you have some information about what you're experiencing, but in the context of helping them to diagnose us properly, we need to have this information to share with them. And so, and not, oh, my grandmama said, or, come with some factual information, print all the stuff out like you did with your medical records and all that, because I think it puts us in a different perspective in the physician's eye that I'm not just talking to, an uneducated person or somebody that's complaining of signs and symptoms. I'm actually talking to someone that actually has done some research about what's going on with her. And she's actually helping me to try to help her to feel better. And so when you come at it across that way, they are a lot more receptive to digging a little bit deeper in looking at what possible causes could be causing the trauma and the pain that you're experiencing when you're presenting to them. So thank you for sharing that, Cassandra. I appreciate it. Now, I want to ask you ladies this question. What advice do you have for women who feel intimidated when speaking to doctors, specialists, or hospital staff? I have a bunch of stuff, but I brought y'all on because I'll talk too much anyway. So Marie, I'm going to go with you because you have a really, really, fascinating and very challenging story with your mom. What would you say with regards to that question?
I would say if you are well, first of all, you need to recognize your value. You have value and you matter. And so once you recognize that, it doesn't matter that they're doctors, because you know what? They're human beings just like you. And their job is to help you feel better. That is their job. So remember that they're here to help you. And if they're not helping you, then there's a disconnect. And so if you can get that clear in your head, I mean, the most important thing I want you to know is that you matter, you have value, you have a purpose, and you're not below anybody. It doesn't matter your title, and it doesn't matter their title. We're all human. That's what I think is the most important thing. If you are still, maybe you're shy, maybe you don't have the confidence to be able to ask questions, or you don't feel like you're there, don't be afraid to ask for help. Just like Coach Cotton, I love what you said. You weren't meant to carry it alone. You weren't. That's why we have family. That's why, I know for me, I felt many times I felt alone because my mom had mental illness and didn't have dad, but I have friends. So I have always had good friends. So maybe you don't have a family member, but maybe you can have a friend that you can trust, that can come along with you. Because again, just like Coach Cotton said, you weren't meant to carry it alone. And like Cassandra Hill said, have that research with you. Now, I also have an autoimmune. It's Sjogren's. And so when I had my autoimmune, they diagnosed me with autoimmune, and I thought, well, maybe diet has something to do with it. And the doctor's like, no, you should be able to eat whatever you want. And I'm going to put you on all these medications, but they made me worse. And I said, you know what? I'd rather just die and feel the way I feel, because the medication feels worse. And she says, you need to be in a mental institute. That's what she told me. You need to be in a mental institution. If you stop taking these medications, that's what I'm going to do, refer you to a mental institution. And I went to my primary care and I said, I need another doctor. And so I went to another doctor. At that time I was in Ohio. I lived in Ohio for 15 years. And I went to Ohio State and I told the doctor, I've done all this research on food. Will you work with me? He says, I'm here to help you feel better and I will help you. So he did. And together we found out there's some foods that actually make things worse for me. And just like you said, Dr. Rochelle, there's some things that that you did to heal yourself naturally. There's things that I did that helped me eliminate that rheumatoid arthritis pain and a lot of the swelling and inflammation. And I had to just get rid of processed foods and things like that. But I found a doctor that would advocate for me. And so if you don't have that confidence, bring someone else along, do what Cassandra did, do what Coach Cotton says. You are not meant to carry it alone. And if you need a coach who can help you because you feel like I can't trust a friend, you've got Coach Cotton, you've got Dr. Rochelle, Cassandra, I'm here. All of us are here. That's what we're here for, to support each other.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love 100% what you said. That was just amazing. I got like chills because it's so true. And the other thing I would share is if you run into challenges with a physician, find another physician. Find another one, because you may have to go through 4 or 5 different physicians, but you'll get that one physician that will actually see you as a human and take the time to dig in and dive deep to try to help figure out what's going on with you. So don't just because you had a doctor for 10, 12, however many years, you liked them before you had this problem. If they're not giving you what you need, if you don't feel like when you leave the office that you feel better, or they've lightened the load on your mind with regards to what's going on in your body, go see someone else. Go see someone. I am a healthcare professional, and I say, even for myself, if I'm not feeling the vibe, if they're discounting me or looking at me kind of funny, or when I ask a question they get all twisted, you're not the doctor for me, because the doctor is supposed to take care of us and see us all as individuals equally, right? And we all know that men get treated differently than women get treated. So they will take a man's chest pain symptoms very serious, but a woman, are you stressed? Don't settle for that. Never settle for second best, ladies, because you're valuable and you are the number one most important person in your life. And without you, those around you will be struggling because they're going to miss your presence, your beauty, your light, and all that you bring to them in their lives. So never, ever forget, you are the most important person in your life, above your mama, above your kids, above your daddy, your grandmama, everybody. You're the most. And if you put yourself first, then everything falls into place. But if you say, I'll get to myself when I can or when I have time, you may die before that even happens, because you're so busy putting everybody before yourself. You can't take care of others if you're not taking care of yourself. And that's one thing I want you to truly, truly let resonate within you. Okay, so my next question is this. If you could redesign women's healthcare from the ground up, what's one non-negotiable thing that you would change, or one non-negotiable change that you would make? And let me start with you, Cassandra.
Yeah, I think for me, that is such a great question. That is a really great question. I think for me, one thing that's non-negotiable is everyone just having access to healthcare, because what I found, once I got the proper diagnoses and started getting in various support groups, um, I was blessed, when I was going through all this. I had health insurance, but that's not everyone's reality. So when you don't have health insurance, sometimes you don't even have access to real health care. You're just, when you're really, really sick, you go to the ER and they're gonna do just the basic bare minimum and send you on your way. And I truly believe, especially when you think about United States, there is too much wealth in this country for the healthcare system to be as broken as it is.
I agree.
So I think the first foundational thing is just making sure women have access to just the basic care we deserve.
I agree. Coach Cotton, you want to add anything to that?
Absolutely. I love what Cassandra said about having access because that's so important. One thing I would add is introducing alternative medicines. From the ground up, I feel I'm so big on holistic, and I believe Rochelle, you said it, and I also heard Marie say it. Holistic medications or treatment, I would say, can be so much more helpful than the prescriptions or the pharmaceuticals. So from the ground up, if I had my choice, which is a non-negotiable, introduce people to an alternative treatment. We have foods out here that we can grow ourselves, and if we can't grow them, there's someone growing it at a local farmers market, and we can patronize those. And again, with that research to help us figure out what proper foods we need to eat to increase our health and live longer. So that's what I would bring into play.
Lovely. Thank you, Coach Cotton. And Marie, what would you say?
I agree with Cassandra and Coach Cotton. Yes, the holistic, definitely, and more access. I definitely agree. We do not have enough access or good access. Even people with insurance may not have good access to healthcare because the deductibles are so high. So they choose not to go to the doctor because they can't afford the deductible. So definitely our insurance, our healthcare system, like you said, Dr. Rochelle, is completely broken because we are now seeing people even in middle class or upper middle class that just don't go to the doctor. So those definitely need to be fixed, as well as education. I think that everyone on this panel, we agree in holistic. I think it starts in the schools. Educate our communities on what it is to be healthy. What does it look like when you're sick? Don't be afraid to speak up. So I think we also need to add in that health component early on into our education system.
I love it. Thank you, ladies. I think when I was in school as a young, I remember we had health ed. I don't think they have health ed. Ooh, I'm really dating myself, but we had health ed. And it was like, it started. So here I'm really dating myself because junior high school, we didn't have middle school. We had 7th and 8th grade. There was junior high school. In junior high school, it started 7th grade and then it carried out. It was a requirement through, I think, 11th grade. And then when you became a senior, you just did whatever. But I think it is important that we start teaching our children, especially our girls, about, taking good care of themselves. And because I am a holistic person and, I can do anything. I shouldn't say it like that, but when it comes to taking care of people, I can give you the holistic. If you want it all, I can go all in for you. If you want just strictly Western medicine, I can do that too. And if you want a combination, I can blend it so that it becomes seamless for you to take better care of yourself. But the thing is, we have to remember that we have to put ourselves first and make us the most important person in our lives so that we can be there for those that we love and care about to help them through the trials, tribulations, and challenges that they may face with their healthcare. All right. This has been really good. I love this conversation. I thank you ladies for, showing up and being honest and being open, because I think the more we can dialogue about things like this and bring it to the light, the more people realize and become aware of what's going on with women's health and how we need to really take a stance to protect our rights as women, because a man do it all the time. And the other thing I would say is, if you do not have a primary care provider, if you have a crisis, if you're struggling, if you're sick, if you're whatever, go to the emergency department. If you don't have insurance, go to the emergency department. They will take care of you for that moment in that instant in time, because I've done it a lot, and be like, why are these people here? But I got this gunshot over here. Why am I dealing with this person here? But at least you get some semblance of care, and they will provide you with follow-up information where you can continue to seek care based on the necessities. There are a lot of, I know when I was growing up, there was a lot of community health centers in my particular hood, so to speak, or city that I grew up in. I'm not sure if that is as available as it was, probably not, back in the 70s and 80s, but there are avenues for us to get healthcare, and then we can take that information and utilize it to get more improved, better health care for ourselves, or better health treatment, I should say, for ourselves. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate all of you. And as we close out today's show, I just want to say, women, we're queens. I don't care where you are, who you are, what color you are, where you're from, where you live around the world. We are all queens. And remember, sis, humanity can't exist without us. And so we should be treated like queens. Men they can make babies, but they can't have no baby. You know, we're the vessel that creates the container that creates these beautiful, beautiful human beings that come out of our wombs. And so our bodies deserve to be treated like we are queens. Our pain deserves better. Our stories deserve to be listened to and to be heard. And we deserve better than what we're getting today. To my powerful panelists, thank you for breaking the silence and sharing a light on the system that too often dims our light. Your voices are medicines to those that you may never ever see, hear, or touch. But believe me, our words of wisdom and the words and the stories that you share are powerfully impacting someone's life to make sure that they do better with taking care of themselves. To every woman watching, if you've ever had to walk out of an appointment questioning yourself instead of the system, I want you to know your body is not lying to you. Your pain is not imaginary. Your symptoms are not hypochondriac things. Your intuition is not overreacting. It's sharing some very valuable information for you. Share this conversation. Talk about it with your sisters, your daughters, your aunties, your friends, your grandmama, if she wants to listen. And let's normalize suffering. Let's stop normalizing suffering and normalizing patient care that is equal, that is just, and that gets to the root cause of what we women are experiencing. Because being a woman is a hard thing in today's society. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this year's Unapologetically Real Conversations. And share this show with every woman you know, you love, you care about, and even those you don't like. Share it, because the wisdom shared in the show this evening has been absolutely powerful. I'm Dr. Rochelle Marie Lawson, your queen of feeling fabulous. And this has been the Bold, Unstoppable Show with my powerful panelists, Coach M. Cotton, Ms. Marie Cosgrove, and Cassandra Hill. Until next time, be well, be wise, and lift your sisters up. Hold their hand and don't let them go through the struggles of having to manage the healthcare system alone if they need you. Take good care, everyone, and goodbye for now.